So, it's been about a month since the defeat of Zsothorum T'thara. Everyone has kind of gathered and been gifted their rewards, and you're in Kharas. You've returned to Kharas, and how far through the move-in process are Ross and Newman?
Well, Newman only takes a day. Newman does not have much to bring, except for maybe a lot of money if it can't fit in his bag of holding. Filthy rich. But yeah, no, Newman doesn't have much. Everything he keeps is in his bag of holding or on his person. So yeah, maybe he might have maybe a case of clothes and that, but that too is being held in the bag of holding.
Yeah.
Okay, so it probably takes longer for everyone to kind of shift the roommate arrangements around, so that because I'm assuming Newman would want to room with Ross since they know each other. Even though he has met her housemates before, he probably trusts her a bit more than he trusts them at this particular point.
As extroverted and trusting as Newman can be, he does much prefer the company of friends rather than strangers, and I'm sure rooming up with strangers is a great way to get to know them. But Newman would like to be comfortable because for the past maybe not the past months per se, but the 2 or 3 months prior to that, he was very, very uncomfortable at all times, especially when infighting happened. So yeah, he would like to be in a safe environment at the moment.
Yeah.
100% would agree with moving in with Ross in Ross's room.
Okay, which means it's pillow fort hours almost 24/7.
Yes, of course.
And also, if he only takes a day to move in, then probably Ross would have helped him get used to the minutiae of living in their particular house and their particular schedules, and coming out to watch certain performances, maybe joining in if he was comfortable, if not just being the plant in the audience that applauds super loud and so everyone gives extra money.
And he'll do all these things and more, 100%.
Yeah. And they also would have worked to clear out part of the storage room so he can set up his little magical convocation TM approved workshop dimension in part of there.
Which, for the sake of saying, is one of the things that he was gifted as a reward for basically the entirety of what Newman did over the past. It was about a year, wasn't it?
4 months.
4 months, yeah, not even a full year.
Yeah.
Was that he was given his own workshop, but his requirements was that it needed to be portable. So essentially what he was given was a door, a folding door, almost similar to a portable hole in functionality, where once you go through that unfolded door would take you to a workshop that the contents could be magically altered per se. So he could usually have most things he needed for anything he wanted to do. So yeah, when we mentioned that door, that's what you should envision. It's basically a door that goes to a really cool productive space in terms of workshop, machinery, metalworking, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and occasionally just a little Ross in the corner, reading a book, because she's learning a language over the break as well.
And what kind of house stuff is Newman being introduced to? So
he'd be introduced to things like the chore list for the boring stuff, like dishes and bins and cleaning. But he would also be introduced to she already mentioned every weekend they go to a local tavern around town and they stay there, party till the sun comes up, and then stay at the tavern for that night for free because they're all bards, and then head back home the next day and do all that. So he'd be introduced to that. It is not obligatory to go and stay the whole 24 hours, but most of them do. He would also probably be introduced to like, yeah, they do like morning, afternoon, and evening performances, busking around town. They do, they wouldn't be doing rehearsals at the moment, but in general, they like carve out like an afternoon every week to just kind of sit and read Hamlet at each other. Fantasy Hamlet, where Hamlet's a paladin. And they might get him to read some of that as well, and like read different roles, depending on how comfortable he is with that kind of thing. And they would probably also, they do, after their 24 hours in town getting cataclysmic, they tend to do craft days on a fantasy Sunday where they like draw and like make all the decorations you see around the house. Like the screen that divides the kitchen and living room is like every week it gets something new painted onto it, or there's more pictures on the walls, and it's them all like crafting and jamming and decorating instruments and decorating their prop weaponry and sewing costumes and stuff. So just big craft days.
When Neumann does attend those craft days, he will try his very best not to over-engineer everything. He will slip up every now and then, because like there'll be something, say for example, like one of those screens where he can't hold back the inspiration and needs to do something like over the top. So
yeah,
maybe it'll have like moving components on it or something like that, or maybe it's something that could perhaps what's the proper word for sunglasses to not let a certain direction of light through? Polarized.
Yeah.
Maybe you could have polarizing ones. It could shift polarization. So something like that. Like he will try not to overcraft things or over-engineer, but it will slip through every now and then.
Oh yeah, 100%. I will say Ross's housemates, they've all met Neumann before, and for the sake of the rundown, it's Bron, Sydney, Yarid, and Sarah. They've all met Neumann before, but they're still kind of like, okay, there's a new person in the house, we will be calm. Maybe not this week, but at least like at some point they will get comfortable enough with Neumann that the second they realize he doesn't play an instrument, all of them are going to start vying for him to learn their instrument, because they all play a different one, and they're all going to be like, so have you thought about hand drums? But what about the lute? But what about the flute? But what about the viol? Like, I think, you know, we have a set of random bagpipes, but like we can all play those, so like you know, they'd all be vying.
His level of instrumental ability at this stage of things would probably be that of a triangle or a cowbell. He can hit metal. So maybe, I guess, a drum would be possibly the easiest thing for him to pick up. But, however, he's quite good at learning, so I think it would just be a matter of time. As to whether or not he'd be proficient in it, like if he could actually competently play music or not too sure, but he could work out mechanisms and he can learn notes and perhaps chords and such, but
chords on a drum.
So by the mechanics, Neumann can basically pick up a tool proficiency a month because of his intelligence modifier.
That's disgusting.
If he has someone to train him, it takes him 3 weeks to learn any tool or instrument.
That's disgusting.
And
three weeks of dedicated training, mind you.
Okay.
But even so, it takes him 3 weeks.
Span that out to like 8 months to learn how to play the drums.
When a non-bard like learns more instruments than a bard.
Oh my God.
In a matter of like a year.
Same thing goes with languages. If you spend like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, working on learning, like working on picking up a new tool or language proficiency, it takes 3 weeks.
Okay, yeah. So Neumann actually will do that because he has a suspicion he might need to travel a fair bit as well. And just judging from his competencies with what he's experienced when they were traveling. I can't quite remember what they were, but there were a few experiences where people were speaking in other languages, and Neumann not once has recognized any of these other languages. Like, no one spoke in his other languages, which I believe is Gnomish and Dwarvish. Never encountered those. So he has picked, well, not picked essentially, but he reckons he should have been taught more languages through his family. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, if Neumann wants, Ross has decided to learn Elvish over the break.
So
100%.
That's the biggest one.
Yeah. And if he wanted, Ross would also teach him Infernal, so that they could have private conversations.
Yeah, sure. Probably Elvish would be the priority.
Yeah, Elvish would be the priority.
Anything beyond those two, it would cost you about 75 gold to get like the right books, materials, or even like paying to have like tutors.
Money is not an issue. Then again, Neumann still thinks he doesn't think he's poor. He just thinks that the others are a little bit wealthier than him right now. But that's also because they also flaunt it a little bit more, i.e. Bertie and Caius. So... yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I don't remember the last time Caius paid for anything. He just wears expensive things.
And anything he did pay for, we didn't see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the whole... Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, technically Neumann came closest because he was technically there when the orphanage was purchased. Doesn't mean he knows.
I guess Neumann would have just been like rich people things.
But yeah.
This must happen a lot, I guess. Yeah.
It doesn't take much for Neumann to learn
wisdom.
a language with his insane intelligence.
Yeah. So it's not broken at all, everyone.
No. Not at all. Just because it takes him 3 weeks to learn an entire language.
Oh yeah, and that's fluent, isn't it? That's fluent. Yeah. Yeah. What can I say?
It's gonna take Ross like 10 weeks and 200 gold to learn Elvish.
Yeah.
Incensed. It's fine. But moral of the story is Ross would teach him Infernal. At least conversationally, so they could have conversations.
9 weeks it'll take for Ross.
Things.
She does have a +1 to intelligence.
So if Ross did help Neumann with, say for example, Infernal, but Ross, I would assume, is still learning it at the same time. Is that what you were planning?
You would be hampered in that regard in learning. Like, that's the one thing that would slow you down. The fact that you're learning it from someone who is learning at a slower pace. Oh no!
Instead, we learn separately, but then
with Elvish, but with Infernal, Ross could, because Ross already knows Infernal.
Yeah, I just had a massive epiphany just then. I was just like, "Why do you even say that, Jake?"
Yeah.
That's all good. That's all good.
But yeah, you can take on a lot of new proficiencies in the time you've got, Neumann.
Yeah. The joke I was going to make was, it would be funny if they were learning beside each other. Maybe perhaps Ross helped him with Elvish, for example. They were learning beside each other, just bouncing things off. Even though Ross might have had a head start, Neumann would then quickly overtake and then become fluent well before Ross. And I feel like that would be super annoying.
That would piss her off so much. Even if he doesn't, doesn't dedicate, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week to learning Elvish, if we space it out over a X amount of time, he would still become fluent before she did, and she would be incensed about it.
He'd probably become fluent around about the time that Ross managed to get conversational.
Yeah. Neumann becomes the #NotSpawn Duolingo owl on Ross's shoulder. Just like, have you done your lesson today? Earn 20 HP.
But going back to moving in and everything, so I guess all these things happen or slowly happen, or he gets glimpses of them over the week. He sees the performances, he helps out with the house stuff. He'll try not to be too full on at first, but again, that's not something he can suppress for long.
Yeah.
But he will eventually settle down himself. Neumann does have a reason for being Kharas, and he did get the portable workshop for a reason as well. So probably at the beginning, he'd start spending a lot more time with Ross and the rest of the roommates. However, maybe towards the end of the week, he will start transitioning to spending more time in his workshop. He definitely would still spend a lot of time with the roommates, but then he would dedicate maybe the majority, if not half of his time to doing his own work anyways.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I think... yeah, they'd expect that Ross would have prepared them for that, because she knows that's Neumann's goal. But as I said, Ross probably spends a decent amount of her downtime, with Neumann, just chilling out in his workshop, just either attempting to assist in his artificer stuff and probably making things more complicated than they need to be, or just sitting in a corner, just quietly chilling out and spending time with him and humming little songs to keep the mood going.
Darby, in this workshop, can Neumann have a mini library?
Yeah, so there would be there'd probably be some books that they would provide you with, as well as shelving that, due to the nature of the workshop, can be incorporated into the layout when you set it up as you so choose. A lot of it would be books on mechanical and arcane devices, and like workshop books, and maybe some maybe some blueprint books and that kind of thing. But there's also room upon the shelves that provided to expand as well.
So Neumann can have his romantic dramas in there.
Yes.
Of course,
Okay,
that's
excellent.
what it is.
So, Neumann would probably spend more so from the morning to a little bit past midday, let's say fantasy 2 p.m. And that's when he'd be spending his time in the workshop. And what he would also do is have a bench next to where Ross would usually do some reading as well. And he would get Zoot to fly around and collect some options for Ross to read. So every time Ross does show up to the workshop, there would be a pile of books of recommended reading materials, some relevant to maybe a project that he's doing, some are just simply to pass the time, or some are simply to make points of topics to talk about, or something like that.
Would there be a lot of romance books placed on there of people named Samuel and Rose, and one of them's a tiefling?
maybe, sure.
Maybe, who knows? And every time Ross is just like, okay.
But yeah, these are just ones that Neumann would have found. He's not much of a writer, so none of these he writes himself. So these are definitely ones that he sourced from maybe abandoned fantasy salvos or something like that, like op shops. That's where he does like to go most of the time, because that's where he finds what he believes is the good books. People tend to not have the taste for these sorts of stories. Some might consider them a little trashy. So yeah, they'll just do away with them at their earliest opportunity. But he'll also source them wherever else he goes. Yeah. So yeah, that's the sort of quality, or sort of the nature of these romantic dramatic books and all that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I guess there would be one day, probably at the end of Neumann's kind of first week in the house, and when he started kind of settling into the workshop, where Ross would probably come in about lunchtime, and she would like bring him a little plate of food with mayonnaise on the side, and she would like, you know, just probably a combination Neumann had worked out before that he enjoys. She will not make him broth soup with mayonnaise, but you know, like one of the slightly more normal ones, quote unquote. And she would like bring him that for lunch, and then kind of awkwardly stand there for a bit, and then just kind of be like, "Can we have a conversation really quick?"
Yeah, sure. Here, or should we? Does this involve everyone? Should we?
No, this is just you and me.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So he'll sort of sit back down. He sort of stood up because it sounded quite like urgent, like we need to go sort of thing, but he'll sit back down on the stool and maybe get comfortable. He'll get maybe Zoot to shift a bench over to him as well, and he'll put it next to him. And then he'll just get Zoot to sort of lay on the table next to him so it's not making much noise. And he goes, cool, what do you want to talk about? As he takes a bite out of some of the food that you brought.
Yeah, probably like, I don't know, chips, a sandwich maybe.
Good talking foods.
Yeah, good talking foods. Well, and then she is also going to grab a chair and like drag it over and like sit in it.
So that one he dragged over earlier was for you.
Oh, sorry, okay, then yeah, she'd just sit in that one.
Ew, I don't want that one.
I didn't. No, she'd sit in the one Neumann provided for her. My apologies.
You're all good.
So yeah, she's gonna sit down and be like, okay, so I know you want to spend a lot of time on your own projects at the moment, but I also know that a big reason for you coming back to Kharas is wanting to fight the wizards. And in my personal opinion, while I do think there is probably going to come a point where we maybe get the party back together and do something about that, in the meantime, one of the best ways to do that might be through the Concord. But before you make a choice about joining the Concord, I think we should have a conversation about where they're at the moment.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess, yeah, it was definitely one of my goals. I didn't know there was a resistance until we came here in the first place.
Yeah.
I guess maybe it was a little bit juvenile of me thinking that, you know, us Kharas would just roll over and let whatever happen. But the particular way we took was just to get out of there. And I only had stories and myths and my own personal sort of expectations of the situation to go off. And I guess I was severely wrong. But the fact that there is a resistance is amazing, and I would definitely like to contribute because I can't really see many other avenues with success being at the end or some sort of freedom, if only the slightest.
Yeah. So. Well, that's good. It's just I've heard some of the stuff you've said about how you feel about the wizards before, and I was worried that maybe you burn it all down kind of mentality, and that might come in handy at some point, but I just sometimes you can't just burn it down, and I wanted to be transparent about that. That's, I guess, my blanket approach. I mean, I'm pretty good at sort of assessing the situation logically. Yeah. I guess I've made a few mistakes in in sort of like an emotional view of things. But yeah, I can usually have a look and see what's going on and make a decision to that. But if it's regarding the wizards, I really don't have much sympathy for them at all. And just these past few months, seeing some of the things that they did, especially to Rook, it's just, I would like to stop seeing this stuff. And I'm not going to jump in straight away. If that's what you're thinking, I'm really going to take my time with this. I'm going to prepare myself, prepare others,
and really just try and do this the right way. But
yeah, no, that's...
Yeah, I guess I'm still working it out.
That's really good. Yeah, no. No, that's really good. It's just when Anya, Zath, and I came back from Kharas to Deasil before we fought them, I did tell everyone that the Concord had been quote-unquote compromised by the fact that Drakar had been killed. Even though he was immediately revived, there were still issues. Because as far as I can ascertain from anything, well, one, I wasn't lying about that for the sake of Zath. That is something that happened. As far as I am aware, no one else at the Concord knows he's alive. It's just me and us. I'm trying to get in contact with him, trying to work out if there's any way we can get his perspective on things, because he's the second most powerful person in the Concord, in Bapsashad. But it's hard to get in contact with him without alerting people to where he is. But one thing I really wanted to talk about is the fact that I'm really glad you know that there's that we can't just run into this. But I have also heard you say a lot that anyone who works with the wizards is someone who deserves to die, basically. I am not saying I disagree with that. What I am saying is that in at least one instance, potentially many more, for the past 20 years, the Concord have been getting agents to infiltrate the Wizards of the Ruins and pretend to be members in order to get information from them.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to prepare you for the fact that there will be situations where if we have to go somewhere and we have certain targets or we're facing a certain group of people, there might be people we can't kill.
Yeah, right. Infiltration and spying, absolutely necessary, but there is a line to draw as well, because it's not uncommon, and whilst I haven't really necessarily seen it myself, I definitely know that it is a possibility that perhaps they do more than they should. They perhaps change sides. I understand where you're going with this, but
yeah.
I guess if I ever ran into any of these people, I would be very critical on them, because whilst I see it as a necessity, it does make it quite easy for them to... Well, not, I shouldn't say easy, sorry. I should say it gives them the opportunity to make decisions where they have to do something good or bad. And the bad thing is what's required for them to keep their position. But if they do this bad thing and justify it as good, I still think that there should be some repercussions for that, because they are still doing these bad things. And I'm sure the Wizards of the Ruin would have these people be all sorts of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you are very correct to be critical of these agents doing that. It takes a certain kind of person to do it for a long period of time.
Yeah, and I do have a lot of respect for those kinds of people. It's definitely hard work, but I just hope that they're making the right decisions and not putting their position over the morals.
Yeah.
But
I know.
Yeah, I guess that's just my general take on it. Like I said, I haven't worked with the Concord. I didn't even know that was a thing. Of course it is, but I didn't really think of it, and I guess I necessarily haven't met any of them either. So you mentioned that there's not much left in Kharas. Would that include that maybe perhaps these people who are working for the Wizards of the Ruin are compromised as well now, or are they all still...
Again, I don't actually know many of the agents doing it. I know one, and they are based in New Arcadia.
Okay.
So somewhere where the wizards have far more of a stranglehold on things.
Yeah, I'm well aware. And I believe Rock even went to visit them as well,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. So I heard a bit about that from Rock.
Yeah.
Sorry, just a quick question. Just in terms of identifying these people, if I ever do run into them without any knowledge, because if you only know one of them, I'm sure there's plenty of other ones. Is there a way to identify them, a code word, or is this just knowledge that we'd be given on a given mission or something?
I don't know, honestly. That's part of why I'm trying to contact Drakar. From what I know, he was one of the people in charge of these agents. But I assume if we talk about it with whoever the new Drakar is, they can sort it out. But
that makes it tricky.
But I can, and she puts her hands together. Neumann might notice it's because they're shaking a bit. She goes, I can tell you the identity of the one agent I do know, if that makes things any easier.
That was going to be my next train of thought, actually. Might as well identify the one in case we ever do run into them. So that way, you know, I can maybe have a chat with them and see where they're at so I can decide where I'm at. But the fact that you know them must mean, or I trust that they'd be one of the good ones, hopefully.
Well, the good news is you've already met them.
So I'm smiling a lot right now. I'm trying not to, but yeah, no, this isn't Neumann smiling. This is me.
Yeah.
Oh. And he's like quickly doing like his eyes are sort of like, he's like looking left and right with his eyes squinted a little bit, like going through his memory, thinking like, who would it have been? Is it one of the roommates or?
No, they only found out about any of this when we came back.
Oh, right. Yeah, you did say you like to keep it separate.
Yeah.
Well, then that could only mean that no.
It's Sam. Yeah.
Right. So that's why he showed up when he did.
Yeah. He broke... Oh, hello, friend. He broke Rook out, brought her to us, but the whole reason I found out who Zath was in the first place is because Sam is the one who led the charge into the Concord and killed Drakar. Because Sam has been doing this long enough that he's become a high commander of the Guard.
Now, this is just a question for Jake, not Neumann. What kind of rank is that? Because I'm assuming Neumann would make himself well acquainted with that kind of knowledge if he could, if it was available to him.
Roll me a history check.
I'm very glad I had my sheet prepared so I could do that. So a history check, did you say?
Yeah.
24.
24. Okay, so you would be aware that they are not... So high commanders of the Guard aren't necessarily high-ranking members within the structure of the Wizards of the Ruins, but they are near the top of the actual... obviously, of the actual Guard. They're usually the ones leading the charge in missions that require the guard's involvement, and usually, yeah, they're above the rank of those who are just doing regular patrols in New Arcadia.
All right. Well, so, sorry, it's just a lot to take in at the moment.
Yeah.
Wow. So, to get a position like that, he would have needed to be there for quite some time. How long has he been doing that for?
From what he told me, 4 years. He also told me that from what Sam told me, he has not been committing most of the acts that would normally get you that kind of rank. He has been modifying people's memories to make them believe that he has.
Right. I guess that's actually quite a clever way to do it, because to get that sort of position, from my knowledge, is you have to do pretty much exactly what they want you to do. You earn that position through respect and hard work. So he's taken a very interesting and I guess a safe approach to that. And for 4 years, that's quite some risk as well.
Yeah, that's part of why he and Drakar organized for him to kill Drakar, was because suspicion was starting to be thrown Sam's way.
I was just about to follow that up as well. He led the charge,
Yeah.
but Drakar was involved. This was planned?
Sort of. He didn't really get a chance to explain it to me, but from what I can tell, Zath wanted to come find us as a party because they had invaded Rook's Head, and I don't know what they saw there. Maybe the fact we killed Karthos and put a spanner in the works for them in that regard. But suspicion was being thrown Sam's way. Zath wanted to come to the Concord, kill two birds with one stone, lead Zath to us, get rid of suspicion on Sam.
And sorry, excuse me, but what was the plan with the convocation? The Concord. Was Drakar asking to be killed, or was there some contingency plan? Was his death the final step of that plan, or was there more?
The plan was apparently that Sam was going to kill Drakar, leave the body, and then come back and revive him a few days later with a powerful mage. I threw the spanner in the works by reviving Drakar immediately, but no one else saw that happen, so none of them know.
But did Zath see it as Rook?
Yeah.
How do we know if Zath alerted anyone? They were quite magically competent. Could they have perhaps sent a message?
That was why I didn't want any of us to be left alone with them, and didn't want them to be left alone. I don't believe there was a point where they could have contacted the wizards, what with everything else going on, with us constantly distracting them and talking to them. It wasn't my best plan, but it's the one I had.
Fair enough. That's okay. I guess you handled it as best you could. I wouldn't have handled it at all. I would have just probably broken out into a fight and probably got myself killed not knowing how powerful Zath was.
Yeah.
So, well, okay. Next step for the Concord, I guess, is to find out whether or not this plan of theirs has had any effect whatsoever. Do you have a way to contact Sam? Can we get in touch?
Birdie and I have actually been working on something for that. We haven't tested it out yet, but I'm gonna visit Durham in a week or two, or a month even, and see if we can contact Sam and ask.
And if for whatever reason the plan has succeeded as planned, I guess, that they believe that Drakkar is dead, would then getting in touch with Drakkar be easier? Would he have some way of finding out? Sorry, I'm asking a lot of questions you might know the answers to, but
that's okay.
I'm really trying to wrap my head around all of this.
I know it. I still am. It's been a lot to deal with and think about on top of everything else that happened. If Drakkar is still in contact with anyone, it's with Sam. So hopefully Sam will know more information about Drakkar and what's happening there, and whether or not I am allowed to be privy to any of this information that I would very much like to be privy to.
Is Ross still shaking?
A little bit, yeah.
Right, so I see I see why you might be a little bit nervous about this, considering, I guess, some of the things that I've said. I think that you don't really have to worry at this stage. I would still like to talk to Sam as Sam, now that I know who he is. I feel like that's definitely a decision I need to make for myself.
Yeah.
But I can assure you that from what I've heard, I have no reason to hold any disgust towards him. He sounds like one of the good ones I was talking about.
Yeah.
I'm hoping anyways, so.
I believe he is, but she closes her eyes for a second and then opens them. If you do want to talk to him, fully aware of who he is, then there is something else I need to tell you.
Neumann rubs his hands together. He's like, oh, okay. Has there been some progress? This is a lot more saucy now, actually, that I know this. So you're basically good and evil in the sense of narrative. He works with the baddies, you work with the goodies.
Oh, is this about the thing you did? Oh,
you were quite unsure about it, but the message you gave earlier was that the message you gave away was that you were inclined to pursue and explore, but you still weren't sure of it. So I guess what I'm asking you now, and what I'm expecting you to talk about, well, what you were going to say was that of the other reason I should know before contacting him.
I am very sorry to say that that is not what I am about to tell you. Although, if it makes you feel any...
Sorry.
No, it's
so
fine.
sorry.
If it makes you feel any better, Neumann, and maybe will soften the impact of what I'm about to tell you, I have been thinking about that certain sense of uncertainty, and I'm still not fully certain about it, but it certainly sure is something in a more forward direction than it was previously. So you are not wrong.
Neumann, he's actively trying to because now he sort of senses a very serious undertone to this transition, and so he's trying to keep a straight face, but there's a smirk he's fighting okay, thanks for letting me know. What else were you going to talk about then?
She takes a deep breath in. She goes, one of the reasons Sam was able to rise through the ranks of the wizards so quickly in a very short space of time, despite seemingly no relation to them, is because he, against his knowledge for most of his life, is a direct descendant of Taven Sarag.
Right. And just to confirm, this is the head?
Yes.
Right. I mean, I've met numerous people who have had absolutely nothing to do with the people who came before them, people who they're related to. I believe you make a life of your own with your own decisions. So unless that is something he's wanting to pursue, I don't see a problem with it. But yeah, how did he find out? Has he always known, or?
When you said that, Ross like exhaled as if like her whole body deflated, and like with relief. And she goes like, he didn't know most of his life. He knew that his parents were refugees from New Arcadia and that they lived in Navora, and he didn't know anything else. And then not long after college, his parents unfortunately passed away. He returned to New Arcadia to see the home his parents grew up in. And that is where he discovered that the reason his family fled was not because of persecution from the wizards, but because every other member of his family, dating back to Taven Sarag, is a member of the wizards.
And I guess, would there be any form of compromise there as well? Would there be extra suspicion on him because of that? The fact that he disappeared but then came back?
I don't know. I think it may be. From what he said, Sarag doesn't sound like a particularly attentive ancestor, considering he doesn't yet seem to know that Sam's a paladin. But I think it grants Sam a certain amount of leniency in what he can accomplish.
I mean, that's a very powerful wild card right there. I can see why.
Yeah.
He would be in the position he is in now with everything you've told me. It makes no sense. To be honest, I'm surprised he's not even higher up the ranks. But perhaps that's as far as he's willing to go.
Probably. And I don't know how much higher you can get without becoming a full mage. So
look, I could 100% see why you have been very uneasy during this whole conversation. And I'm sure if you've noticed, but you have been shaking quite a fair bit.
Oh, I was trying to hide it. I didn't want you to think I was.
It's all good.
Okay.
It's all good.
Okay.
But I definitely would like to talk to Sam.
Okay.
And to elaborate on what I said earlier, regarding, people basically performing other people's wishes or destinies and that. I don't necessarily believe in that sort of stuff. And a prime example is to look at Anya and Birdie, especially Birdie. Birdie had this entire dark journey set out in front of them, and the whole time they opposed it. Also towards the end, but they went against what Zsothorum was asking him to do. Same with Anya. In the grand scheme of things, I guess, Asmodeus or Asmodeus?
Asmodeus.
Asmodeus got his way in the end. He got us to kill this man. He got us to give him that box. He got what he wanted, but Anya was looking at every single avenue to avoid doing that and to keep some semblance of, I guess, herself. I believe that Anya's was a little bit... she definitely did sway quite a bit, but Birdie was unwavered, especially right at the end. I believe that maybe Sam is in a similar position as well, where he may be doing everything he can to avoid that destiny or that fate. But the fact that he's in the perfect position to pursue that fate does worry me a little bit. Very, very close to the seat of power. Very, very close and vulnerable to influence. So this is why I would like to talk with Sam myself.
It worries me too. And if I can, I'll try and find a way for you two to talk.
No rush.
Yeah.
No rush.
It might
I
take
have no
a while,
intention of leaving here anytime soon.
But no, I just wanted to talk about the Concord, and I wanted to talk about Sam because you thanked him. You didn't get to thank him in person, but you thanked him for what he did with Zath. And I wanted you to know who you were thanking, independent of how I may or may not feel about him. As you said, you deserve to make a choice about him. That is your right. And I will do everything I can to make sure you can make that decision.
Yeah, I guess there's no easy way around it, this whole conversation. So, This is sort of made a tricky sort of dramatic triangle of sorts, I guess, where I'm guessing you wish for his safety, and as do I, but you're really making me rethink everything I've said or everything I've felt about these past few months. But I still feel that if he has had any or mainly bad actions performed, especially the innocent, the vulnerable, then I guess extreme measures might not be the perfect solution in his case, but he definitely should be punished. That's not something, regardless if you're undercover, unless this is the biggest operation and the only thing that the Concord can do, even then, still maybe not, but you shouldn't be sacrificing yourself to reach. You shouldn't be sacrificing your morals. You shouldn't be selling yourself out just to make the smallest change or for someone else's benefit. So I really hope that he's aware of that. And I guess that's the thing I'm eager to find out.
I hope so too. I know I have had to make a lot of compromises in what I do, often ones I'm not comfortable with. I hope that his decisions where compromises have a far higher body count are made more critically. And
I guess I've had similar experiences as well. My first compromise, I guess you were there as well. You witnessed it, but my sword as well. I was, I guess, a little uneasy when I found out the true nature of what the sword was, that it was cursed. I was intrigued, interested. I wanted to see what it could do, how far it could go, and it took me far. But then the second that I knew that this could potentially turn into something bad, something I didn't want at all, I threw it away at the first opportunity.
Mm.
And whilst my friends were concerned about it, I guess I did sort of let it slide for a little longer than it should have, and it led to some very undesirable outcomes because of that.
Yeah.
But I feel like I did it at the critical point. I feel like if I had have kept the sword any longer than that, then I probably would have became obsessed. I would have changed.
Yeah.
So I hope those sorts of compromises are being made at the right time.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe there'll come a time when Sam can abandon this mission and work on being Sam again.
From what I saw, he seems quite strong, both mentally and physically. I'm sure that he's quite comfortable.
It was kind of hard to tell under the cloak, but...
He was swinging a sword, was he not? Was he swinging a sword? Or...
Yeah, he was swinging a long sword, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it's called the Corpse Slayer.
Oh, that's quite a scary name.
It is.
Yeah.
So
just from the way he was,
sword in one hand, shield in the other.
From the way he was swinging that sword, even though I couldn't see underneath the cloak, it's quite evident that he not only has skill, but he also has strength to wield it in such a way.
Yeah, he's stronger than I thought he was in a lot of ways. But then again, maybe I am too for him. So, oh God, it's not getting into that right now. Sorry. Just, yes, no, hopefully there will be a chance for you to talk to Sam. Like I said, I'm going to try to talk to him soon. See if I can get anything. And we'll see about all of it.
Well, and what is Ross doing with their hands right now?
When he pointed out that she was shaking, she would have just because she was leaning forward, she would have sat up straight, but put them on her legs, but then she's kind of moved back into just kind of fidgeting with them. She'd be playing with all the rings she wears, so she's just kind of fiddling with the rings and fidgeting, basically.
So there isn't really a free hand to grab. So instead what he'll do is he'll rummage through his things and he'll take out I believe it was a skull medallion or something that he got off Zath. And he'll place that on the table and he'll go, again, I still need to make my own decision on this, but you can have my word that I won't hurt Sam. And I definitely won't go any further than that. But that's not to say that if I find out that he's done terrible things, that I won't influence people to punish him. That I won't want justice or something. But you have my word that I won't hurt him.
Thank you. If we find out that he's been doing terrible things, honestly, you'll have to stop me from hurting him first. So
punch him in the face, maybe?
No, oh God. God, you hit someone one time. Probably, I don't know. He wears a lot of metal. Could probably make that very difficult for him, but thank you, Neumann.
It's all good.
It means a lot.
And I'm happy to talk about this anytime, but I guess I don't really have much more to say until I have that chat with him. So just if it makes you feel any easier about this topic, and thank you so much for telling me about this. No harm will And I plan on keeping that word.
Thank you. I'm glad I spoke to you about it.
Do you want a hug?
Of course I want a hug.
Awesome. And then, yeah, Neumann outstretches his arms and invites Ross in. Actually, is it Ross or Rivari at the moment?
Oh, whichever he uses, she won't correct him.
I mean, the persona also. How does...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Is Ross like this? Is Rivari at home, or is Ross still...
She gets very uncomfortable with her real name being said around her housemates. But if Neumann uses it in private, she would be okay, but not around anyone else in the house.
So Ross is still Ross even in her own home?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, yeah. Well, then he wouldn't refer to it as Rivari anyways, just because that's just what he's always called, Ross.
Yeah. No. Yeah. But yeah, no, she would go in for the big hug.
Awesome.
Yeah.
This conversation has probably been going on for quite some time, and I believe the snacks you brought might have been cold. So Neumann...
Oh, jeez. I can heat them up for you.
No, it's good. They're still quite good, but Neumann will make an effort just to eat as much as he can, as quickly as possible, to not be wasteful of food.
Yeah, I think she might grab like a chip. I think it's either, I don't have it in front of me, but either thaumaturgy or prestidigitation can reheat food.
Yeah, I have a sneaking suspicion. Yeah, you chill, warm, or flavor up to 1 cubic foot of non-living material for 1 hour. So yeah.
So she'll like heat up a chip and then probably get excited and heat up all of the chips, but also accidentally heat up the mayonnaise.
So by the point that you did that, Neumann had already like had a mouthful of just cold chips. So the change is welcomed.
Yeah.
Well, Ranku.
All good.
Still digesting. He's still got a whole clump in his mouth.
Yeah.
But yeah. Look, I feel like we definitely got to talk about this at some other time, though. Feel free to bring it up again before then, but it needs to be, I think, after we've had the chance to talk to the Concord or a chance to talk to Sam.
Yeah. I'll see what I can do, because I also very much want to talk to both of them.
I think on that note, we'll leave this little scene there.
All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you for listening on our little scene here.
Yes.
I did have a follow-up question. Sorry, real quick. This is of Jake, though.
Yeah.
Does Neumann have to be on the lease? Or is he just a +1? Because he's paying rent, which is fine. He's happy to pay the rent, but is he officially on the lease, or?
That depends on what Neumann wants. If he wants to be a leaf on the wind, then no.
He's not planning on leaving anytime soon, so he would push for it. But
okay, then
forms and
Ross would help him with the forms. She would help him with the forms.
Okay.
Actually, Ross would attempt to help with the forms. Sarah, the 6'6" Asimar, would end up helping Neumann with the forms.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That was my only other question, and I reckon Newman's going to fit in very nicely.
I think give him a couple months. He might be wearing a little gemmed belt of the players of the Shining Stream.
We'll see. But I guess more of that in the time skip. Yes. Whether or not anyone's heard of that episode yet or not, whether it's before or to come after this, who knows? You'll hear more of it then.
Yes, but thank you for listening.
Thank you. Bye.